One. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Rebecca.
How you doing?
Rather well. I have bread rising on the kitchen stove, just as somewhere to put the bowl, and it's a good day.
Good. Well, welcome to our second ever conversational Zoom sermon. I want to say we're not doing communion this time. You can go back and watch the other communion if you want to take communion again. Um, but I also want to say that we're doing this because you suggested it, Dad, which is kind of fantastic.
Well, as we approached Mother's Day, it seemed to me that I would really like to do something for my congregation, St. Andrews in Sterling. And as I said last time, I could never do this on my own. So here we are, and I thank you for that. Greetings to St. Andrews, greetings to Graceview, greetings to other friends throughout Southern and Northern Ontario that we have who will take advantage of the opportunity to tune in and watch.
Excellent. And so what we're doing today is actually preaching a little bit of Christmas in the middle of May. And that was, again, your suggestion. And I kind of loved it because the days are so strange. All morning, I have been convinced it's Friday. And then today is actually Saturday. We're doing it a day early so that we can make sure the technology works. But there's this general strangeness about time, and I've had this conversation with so many friends and so many people that there's a meme that says from until further notice, the days of the week will be referred to as this day, that day, the other day, and whatever day. And that's how it feels right now. So doing Christmas in the midst of May, maybe it's a little bit topical and a little bit appropriate for our times.
Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 20 is so appropriate at Christmas time, of course, but it's also so appropriate at Mother's Day. And yet, in 50 years of ministry, I've never done this passage on Mother's Day. And yet, it's the marvelous birth story. And therefore, it's about Mary too.
Yes, and it seems obvious once we start talking about it, but it's one of those things that just never occurred to us before. So you can learn new things no matter how far along in the ministry journey you are.
Amen.
That's a good thing. All right, so as Dad said, our passage is Luke 2, 1 to 20, which is the sort of the whole birth narrative with the shepherds and the angels in there as well. In the Gospel of Luke, there's also a birth narrative in Matthew, but it's very short and to the point. So your thoughts, Dad. Share with me your thoughts.
Well, here we are in the midst of COVID-19, and I don't know about you, but certainly for me, my days since mid-March have structured around listening to the Prime Minister at 11:15. Back then, he was coming out somewhere between 11:15 and 11:30, but CBC was ready to go at 11:15. And the Premier of the province would be on at 1 in the afternoon. Your mayor in Toronto would be on at 3:45 in the afternoon. Government, government, government. And God bless Luke. As he deals with the story of the birth of Jesus, he tells us that Caesar Augustus is in charge in Rome. He's ordered the first census as an act of his government. Quirinius is the governor of Syria. And you and I stood on the Golan Heights and listened to automatic weapons fire and mortars during that civil war when we were in Israel 2015.
Yep.
And those things seemed so immediate because it was only 6 miles to the battle zone. And yet we were high on a hill overlooking the rest of the world.
Yep.
Anyway, government so involved these days. So involved those days.
Yeah, and you said something to me the other day that I thought was rather brilliant and hasn't left my mind since. You said we were talking about how difficult this whole thing is, especially for ministers. Like Sundays are just a hard day because not being with our
We're
people,
supposed to be doing something else.
right? And you feel a little bit guilty, and you feel like sad that you're not with your people, and it's just a weird mix of emotions. And you said to me, it's like we're in Babylon, referencing that psalm that says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. And so this idea that we are sort of in exile at the moment, and we are strangers in a strange land. And that also is in Luke 2, as the government insists that everybody go to their hometown. And so Mary and Joseph have to leave where they're living and where they met to go to a different part of the country. I can't imagine the discomfort of traveling through a desert on a donkey while pregnant. They are probably, experiencing some of that those mix of emotions and the strangeness of their days as well.
Becky, I say that she has taken me out of my comfort zone with all this technology. I'm going to take her out of her comfort zone by talking about September the 15th, 1975. I was in the delivery room when Becky was born. I wasn't there to film it. I wasn't there to take pictures. I was there to help my wife breathe through labor and to massage her lower back, because her labor was extremely difficult. It started at 6 o'clock. Becky came into the world at 9 o'clock in the evening. It was only a 3-hour labor, but there were no breaks between the labor pains. And I came away from that experience absolutely convinced that women are tougher than men. And certainly when it comes to being mothers, they do all the hard work.
Yep. And it's just amazing to me. You say that in 1975, where you had a nice, clean hospital in a safe country to go to. Imagine what Mary and Joseph were experiencing in a barn in a backwater town that isn't even their home place.
Did you hear the marvelous good news story from this past week involving Carla Bell?
No.
She was ready to go on duty, COVID-19 nurse, forget the hospital in Toronto. But she looked out as she was waiting in line to go through the things that have to be gone through before she could start her shift. And she saw a car arrive and a man who was obviously distraught. She went outside and very quickly learned his wife was in the car in the midst of bearing a child. The head was already visible. So she said to herself, I am just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then she smiled and she said, no, I'm in the right place at the right time. She went over to the car, delivered the baby, wrapped it in a jacket, and got the mother and baby and father into the hospital and attended to by proper personnel. It suits Luke 2, 1-20.
Yep. I don't even, that's just the reality of these days, right? We go from sort of having our emotions in check to totally losing it. So that's been part of the days, part of my Sundays. I refer to sermons now as come sit on my couch and we'll cry together and talk about Jesus. and I have a couple of friends who will text me and say, would you stop making me do the ugly cry? And I'm like, well, join me. Oh, what a great story.
You come by it honestly.
Yes, I do. At Graceview, we've had 3 different pieces of good news of babies to come in August. We have a young couple who they now live in Hamilton, but we're married at Graceview, and they do drop in when they can, and they are expecting a baby boy. And we have a lovely lady in our congregation who is becoming a great grandmother again in August. And then the daughter of former Graceview minister Jan Haminga is expecting a child as well. So that's been a joy to share with our congregation, because there's the thing about new life, right? That just
Yes.
the fact that there is another child coming into this world, there's so much promise and so much hope and so much joy that comes with that and with that announcement. So and Jesus's birth is no different. It's this, I mean, it's no different in some ways, and it's incredibly different in other ways, but it's still this moment of great joy.
This being Mother's Day, I am mindful of the fact that we men quite often bemoan the fact that the majority of our congregations have a tendency not only to be women, but to be older women who, of course, are mothers in many cases. But I'm reminded that that's always been the case. We don't talk about it. It's always been the case that women were in the majority in Christian churches. John Ertberg tells the story in his little book, Who Is This Man? A Study of Jesus, and how he has changed the world in so many ways, including the respect given to women. One of the stories he rooted out is that when they destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, there was a Christian church that was decimated and all the believers were killed. And so it was a mass burial. Archaeologists did a dig and they found remnants of footwear, and the women's slippers outnumbered the men's sandals at a ratio of 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Women have always been so prominent in the church.
And it was mothers who brought their children to Jesus so that he could bless them, right? That's what we usually preach on Mother's Day. That's sort of the go-to passage.
Yes.
And yeah, the angel appears to Mary, right? There's this stream of motherhood and the presence of women that is there just from the beginning, which is one of the failures of the church at times has been its lack of women leadership, its lack of respect for women. God bless the Presbyterian Church in Canada. That hasn't been an issue for us for a long, long time. But certainly that's one of the things that historically the church has struggled with.
And I can remember when I started out in ministry back in 1972, I was in a rare presbytery. We had one woman minister.
Yep.
And there were many presbyteries at that time had none.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't have done the things that I do back then.
Right.
It would have been
That's
a lot
right.
harder. So thinking generally about motherhood too, my favorite verse from all of the Christmas verses, and I have a lot of favorite verses in there, but my absolute favorite is that Mary treasured all these things in her heart and thought deeply about them. And I love that because that's so what moms do. They treasure up the details of their children in their heart. And my mom can tell you that when I was 3 years old, she was pretty sure I was going to be a minister. And
Right.
I don't even, the story is that my brother was talking to a family friend of ours, and this family friend asked him what he was going to do when he grew up. And he said, well, I'm going to be a minister like my dad. And my mom looked at him and went, probably not, but Rebecca might. At 3 years old.
You mentioned the angels. I'm always stricken by the fact that when Mary went to the tomb on Easter morning and an angel appeared, and she's got a history with angels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes back to the birth announcement. She's not mesmerized by angels being present at the tomb. I'd really like to know what she was thinking.
I have always suspected, with absolutely nothing to support it, that Mary kind of knew what was going to happen. I'm not sure she could have said it out loud. I'm not sure she would have understood the details, but I've always suspected that she knew what was going to happen. And the way I would explain that is that when the Harry Potter novels were coming out, when they were being published, J.K. Rowling gave an interview, and in which she said she didn't often talk publicly about her faith, because if she talked publicly about her faith, you would know what was going to happen in the end. And I went, oh my gosh, Harry's going to die. And he's going to have to defeat the devil, right? To defeat Voldemort,
Right.
who is the devil, and is the presence of death, the Death Eaters. Okay, totally dorking out on Harry Potter, but I remember that was about the time that the fourth novel had come out, which meant there were 3 more novels to go. And I remember reading them with this, especially the last one, with this sense of dread of how this was going to happen and what was going to happen. And, the dumb thing is, like, I should know better, but the dumb thing is, I didn't get the resurrection part. I thought Harry's going to die. I didn't really think it through but he's probably also going to come back, because this is in some ways a retelling of Jesus' story, and Jesus was alive again. So there you go. That was probably a rabbit hole, but
I agree with you. I don't know what she knew, but I have no doubt that she was praying that if he had to die, and he said he would, he'd also said he would rise. Oh Lord, let that happen. Oh Lord, let that happen.
yep.
What God does through this one obedient woman and the faithful man, Joseph, they managed to deliver into adulthood Jesus, who can then take on the work that his Father has waiting for him. It includes the cross, it includes the tomb, and it includes the third day. And here we are on the first day of the week. Look at your calendar. It's the first day of the week, left-hand side margin, all the Sundays. First day of the week, Resurrection Day. Mother's Day, too.
Yep. Yep. I don't even I don't even know what to say now, because now I'm just going again. There's a song I love. So there's a number of CDs that came out in the 90s called City on a Hill, and it was a collection of various Christian artists, and they put out a Christmas one, and there's a song on it that includes the words, "Oh Mary Joseph, dry your eyes and try not to think of the ending." And it just, for me, always reminds me that his parents knew him better than anyone. And moms know their kids, right? They just know their kids. They can tell you things that no one else could tell you about their kids. And so yeah, I just wonder what that was like as she goes through life as the mother of Jesus, who is going to die, who is going to rise again, but she doesn't get to look back on that the way that we do.
And life being life, we assume from what we are told that Joseph was older. He obviously passes out of the picture, and we presume he died.
Yep.
long before the time of Jesus' public ministry, or at least before that ministry began. She walks the dusty roads of Galilee with 120 or so people who are following Jesus from place to place to see what he does, to hear what he says. And of course, she's there when he is crucified. She is part of the entombing, taking care of the body. And she is there when he rises.
Yep. And, you know, I remember growing up that you would talk about how mom, as a pastor's wife, was such a support to you and such a gift to you. And there was lots of stuff she did totally behind the scenes because that's mom's way. But really supporting your ministry and the work of whatever church you were serving at the time. And the beautiful thing is that I don't have a spouse to do that, but my mom has stepped into that role in amazing ways. And less so now, like when early in my ministry, I would often call her when I just got to the point of, okay, I have nothing to say on Sunday and it's going to be utter failure and it's going to be horrible. And how am I going to survive this? And she would just talk to me calmly and say a few things, and I'd go, oh, there's my sermon. Thanks, Mom.
Your mother has done that for me for 51 years.
Yep.
I reminded her this past week when we were at the farmhouse, and her knee is really giving her trouble these days, that she has to be careful because I can't function without her. And I realize she has stepped into that role with you as well. She now manages 2 ministers.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. What a gift.
And enables us to do what we do.
Yeah, and what a gift she is. So we've been talking for a while. It might have been as much as 20 minutes now. So we should probably wrap it up. I could talk to you for another half an hour happily, but we do need to be able to upload it in some sort of reasonable time and all that sort of stuff. So final thoughts.
It is Mother's Day. I think of my own mother, your grandmother, your other grandmother, Barbara's mother. I think of my spiritual mother, Mrs. Brown, who was responsible for my coming to faith and who saw her life as she always puzzled over why I had become important to her. And the day that I announced that I was going into the ministry, she just said, oh, so that's what this has been all about.
Yep.
God bless our mothers.
Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day, all of you mothers. Happy Mother's Day, all of you pet moms, because I think we do a thing too. And I don't know if you heard early in the video, Koski was chewing on her antler and making some noise in the background, so that's what that was. I just wanted to direct you to a couple of videos we're posting on the blog today. We have Eric playing a beautiful rendition of Mary Did You Know as a prelude music. We have Come All Ye Faithful as a hymn, and Once in Royal David City as a hymn. And then Dad's done some special music too. The God of the Mountain is still God in the Valley. So enjoy that. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day.
God bless you, Becky. God bless you, Graceview. God bless you, St. Andrews.
God bless you, friends.
Yes.